Today in the Spotlight, it's a new year, which means that it's time to celebrate Torrance's Rose Float. We'll take you to the dramatic decorating sessions where volunteers use painstaking detail to create a floral masterpiece. Then local dignitaries get a sneak peek at the float during the officials' night viewing. We'll see how the parade judges rate the Torrance float the day before the parade. Then it's off to Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, when Torrance's Festival of Flowers float makes its debut at the 119th Tournament of Roses Parade.
Hello everyone and welcome to Spotlight Torrance. I'm Alexis Sita. Thanks so much for joining us and happy 2008. I hope you've all recuperated from the holiday season. While most of us were kicking back and enjoying some time off, a dedicated group of over 500 volunteers were getting their hands full of glue and were getting bleary-eyed from cutting the same flowers over and over again. I, of course, am talking about the Torrance Rose Float volunteers. Every year, this group of unsung heroes creates a floral spectacle for the entire world to enjoy at the Rose Parade. So in this edition of Spotlight Torrance, we thought it would be fun to give you a behind-the-scenes look at getting the Rose Float finished and ready to roll down Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena. So first, flowers, flowers, and more flowers. That's what the decorators use to create the beautiful float. Let's take a look at these sometimes thorny, always interesting decorating sessions.
In order to get a sneak peek of what Torrance's Festival of Flowers Rose Float was going to look like before heading down Colorado Boulevard, we stopped by Buena Vista Pavilion float decorating in Duarte. There we went behind the scenes to look at the float decorating process, as over 500 Torrance volunteers worked to meticulously apply all of the natural plant materials covering every part of the massive float. To complete the float, it will take more than 4,000 man-hours and 4 long days, starting at 9 in the morning and ending at 10 at night. And as you can see, every second counts, especially when it comes to decorating this fan with flowers made of tiny lentils, requiring a steady hand and lots of patience. To maximize their time, volunteers are split into groups. Each group is led by a supervisor who follows a schematic to make sure they're all on schedule. And the Festival of Flowers theme rang true, as many of the volunteers were seen working on various flowers from orchids to lotus blossoms. While we're not quite able to tell what the final float will look like, it is sure to flourish. For Spotlight Torrance, I'm Veronica Gardenas.
It's truly amazing to see how the float is transformed from a skeleton into a moving piece of art. It's really impossible not to be impressed. And some Torrance dignitaries showed their pride in the volunteers' over 4,000 hours of work at the annual officials' night viewing. Let's take a look.
With only a couple of days before the float parades along its 5.5-mile route, local dignitaries caught up with float organizers to give them a boost in morale. Ohanami, or flower viewing, is the Japanese tradition of holding parties under blooming cherry blossom trees, and it's the perfect theme for this year's float. And while volunteers added roses one by one to the float titled Festival of Flowers, council members came to view the progress. The Torrance Rose Float Association showed the council members how each flower becomes a lively art form once they are pasted together on the 35-foot-long float. Councilwoman Hope Witkowski came to show her support as volunteers glued orchids and chrysanthemums to the centerpiece, a kabuki dancer dressed in a kimono. With energetic volunteers working on ornate folding fans, a torii gate, and a Japanese footbridge, the council members of Torrance agree that this year's float is a dynamic masterpiece. For Spotlight Torrance, I'm Tina Yanagimoto.
Well, I'm exhausted just watching these volunteers work, so we're going to take a break, but when we come back, more behind-the-scenes action with the Torrance Rose Float Association. Stay tuned.
There are many worlds beyond your own. In my world, there is a special bond between animals and humans. I'm Lyra, and this is my friend Yurik, an armored bear of the far north. Yurik can defend himself against whatever challenges he may face. In your world, there are polar bears who also live in the far north, but they are at risk. They need your help if they are to survive. You must be their armor. Global climate change is reducing the size of their home and shortening the season in which they are able to find food. World Wildlife Fund works every day to study how global warming impacts the Earth and what we can do to stop it, for polar bears and for people too. The Arctic is one of the most vast and unknown regions on Earth. You can help save it and our entire planet, for bears, for yourself and for future generations. There may be many worlds beyond our own. Make a difference in yours. Visit worldwildlife.org.
Television is a powerful and influential medium that allows different groups the opportunity to produce programming that directly affects their own communities. Public, educational, and government access channels ensure that all people, regardless of race, age, gender, disability, religion, or economic status, have access to local government information and the use of a public communication forum. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Welcome back to Spotlight Torrance. I'm Alexis Sita, and thanks for joining us on this behind-the-scenes look at the Torrance Rose Float. Now, this year marks 119 years of the Rose Parade. The parade started back in 1890 when floats were, I suppose, powered by horses and humans. By the turn of the century, float entries were allowed to be motorized, thank goodness for that. But every year, the floats have become more elaborate and more impressive, and the Torrance Float is no exception. And while the Torrance Rose Float Association can bask in the glow of such a grand artistic endeavor, they're also in it for just a little recognition. And they got it this year in a big way. Let's take a look at how the Torrance Float fared with Rose Float judges.
Taking a close look at Torrance's entry this year, judges admired the 21 feet tall depiction of a cherry blossom festival, an event celebrated in Japan since ancient times. The float was judged in the category called Best Floral Display, 35 feet and under. The officials scored based on how well the flowers were applied, its overall beauty, and how well it fit into the parade's theme. And this year's float, Festival of Flowers, received high praise as the winner of the Volunteers Trophy. The design was a salute to the 35-year relationship between the city of Torrance and its sister city, Kashiwa, Japan. It features traditional Japanese architecture. A torii gate and Japanese footbridge frame a kabuki dancer at each end, while cherry trees, lotus flowers, and silk fans complete the flourishing garden's beauty. This award-winning float is Torrance's 54th entry in the Tournament of Roses parade. For Spotlight Torrance, I'm Candace Lee.
A well-deserved trophy for the city of Torrance. Bravo! Well, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to take you to the real excitement out on the street. Stay tuned for our float's debut at the 119th Annual Rose Parade.
What do you want?
Just rock and roll.
What?
Just something simple? It says rock and roll.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man. I love rock and roll.
Okay, dude.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
We're at a crucial stage with energy usage. Prices are just too high. We need to cut consumption, and we need alternatives. That's what drove us to attempt the first static electricity-powered home. Static cells under the carpet collect energy and transfer it as needed throughout the house.
Faster! Faster! Water's getting cold!
Success has been elusive. It hasn't been everything we'd hoped. But besides making the house itself more energy efficient, the smartest thing we did, the bright spot, if you will, is that we equipped the house with Energy Star products, which use less juice and save money. Static electricity may not be viable, but hey, we've taken a step toward the future. Our future. Anyone can make their home more energy efficient.
Good night, sweetie.
Good night, Mommy.
Gregory Peck, John Wayne, Frank Sinatra, Walt Disney, Kermit the Frog. What do these names all have in common? Well, there's a joke in there somewhere, but these American icons have all served as Grand Marshals for the Rose Parade. Now, this year's Grand Marshal was the Bam Man himself, celebrity chef Emeril Lagasse. And the 2008 theme for the Rose Parade was a passport to the world celebrations. So in honor of the 35-year-old bond between Torrance and our sister city of Kashiwa, Japan, the Rose Float was truly a festival of flowers.
The first day of 2008 marked the 119th annual Tournament of Roses Parade. This year's theme was the passport to the world celebrations. And as millions of people around the world tuned into the parade, all eyes were on the city of Torrance with yet another award-winning float.
This float took hundreds of volunteers, thousands of hours to complete, and it's all in celebration of Torrance's 35th anniversary with our sister city in Kashiwa, Japan.
The city of Torrance took home the trophy for Best Non-Commercial Float.
This is incredible. To win the highest non-commercial float award is fantastic, and this goes to show you all the hard work all these volunteers put into this float really has paid off this year. And we're so pleased to be out here to find this out so early in the morning, and they're all excited.
The Torrance float featured a 17-foot-high kabuki dancer, 21-foot-high torii gate, and a floral koi pond. In the grand tradition of the parade, volunteers used everything from orchid petals, coconut, and lotus blossoms to create the look. Other highlights of the parade included a Transformers float by Honda, and even some passports to the world that were out of this world. Some Torrance residents had front row seats in Pasadena, proud of the parade win that represented their city to the world.
We're in Troop 65, Torrance Boy Scouts, and we were selling programs. We got here at 3:30 in the morning, and we are tired, really tired.
Are you excited to see all the floats?
Yeah, really excited. Torrance just went by, and it was pretty good.
And so what's it like to see Torrance represented so well at this parade?
Oh, it's wonderful. The whole parade is wonderful. I don't think I've ever been this close to the parade in my life. It's very exciting.
Tina Mather, City Cable 3.
Well, another year, another great float. We hope you enjoyed our behind-the-scenes look at Torrance's award-winning entry. And remember, if you have any questions or comments about our show, we want to hear from you.
Give us a call at 310-618-5762 or send us an email at spotlight@tornet.com. And if you missed any part of our show, be sure to tune in again every day at 1:30 and 7:30 p.m.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Spotlight Torrance.